Hello, I'm John Pawson, and this is the Experience is Everything podcast brought to you by Gray Dawes Events. In today's episode, we're talking to the new Director of Events, Erin Davey-Barrow. She shares with us some of her previous experience. We go through the getting to know you type questions of what she wanted to be when she grew up and find out what her ambitions were around becoming an athlete, and then becoming a physio, and then working in agriculture, and then coming across and working in events. We also talked to her about some amazing memories she's got from events that she's worked on while she's been in the industry. We talk about her previous work working client side and the benefits that brings to both the team and to Gray Dawes Events clients. It was a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy this latest episode of the Experience is Everything podcast. Hello, Erin.
Hi, John. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good. Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for agreeing to come on to be the guest on the podcast this time.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you join us. Obviously, relative newbie to the team, so it's great to get you in the spotlight, in the hot seat, and get a little profile of who you are and what you're about.
Perfect. Sounds good. I think it's week 6, so I don't know if that's still a newbie or not, but we'll take it as a newbie for now.
Where have those 6 weeks gone?
I know, really fast, really quick.
They're really flown for you as well.
Yeah, they have really flown. They're sort of, it feels like I've only just started, but then it feels like I've been around a while. It's a bit strange, but yeah, gone pretty quickly.
I think that's got to be a good sign, though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
I would say so.
They say time flies when you're having fun, so I think you're probably right.
Exactly that. So as you know, what we do with the Experience is Everything podcast is we start by going through a little bit of a getting to know you set of questions, which we ask everyone. And after that, we'll dig into a topic. I think this time around, what we'll do is we'll talk about your previous experience in a bit more detail, because I think there's some probably some really interesting avenues we can look down if we go through that.
Yeah, of course.
So the first question that I've asked everyone so far is, what was the first thing that you wanted to do when you were growing up? The first thing you can remember saying, "Oh, I really want to do that when I grow up."
Yeah, so the first thing I wanted to do was be an athlete. So I've always enjoyed watching sport, liked sport, and wanted to be an athlete, which I realised pretty quickly that probably wasn't for me, and I probably wasn't good enough to be the level of athlete I wanted to be. So I moved on from that and thought, well, if I can't be an athlete, I'd like to be a physio for one of their sports teams, because I thought, I'd still be involved. But then I went on and did an agricultural science degree and ended up in events. So definitely very different to where I thought I was going to be.
So it was that. Yeah, that's a path there. That's an interesting path. I mean, we'll we normally go through that as well in terms of what was your journey in then. That sounds like an interesting one for you.
Yeah, so it was. So I thought I was going to do a science degree, and then realised there was a lot of people doing that. So agricultural science was a bit smaller and gave me sort of the business side and that kind of thing as well. So I went down that route, and then I just liked organising things, really. So I was kind of the organiser of my group of friends, I suppose, back when I was younger, and realised that's what I really liked doing. So I did grain logistics for a bit, which was kind of the agricultural side, I suppose. But events is logistics. A lot of what we do is operations and logistics to get those sort of events up and running, and it just made sense, really. So I was lucky enough to kind of end up in it, which was great.
I mean, I guess, like you say, there's parallels to be drawn between making sure the right yield of grain is is brought in, and making sure you get all your people to the place they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, very loosely, yeah, but there's a lot of similarities there. Events are really, there's so many logistics involved, especially when you're doing something big and complex and complicated. There's so many things involved in each one, and I guess it kind of, I mean, very loosely, but matches over together.
With the agricultural side, then, was that something that you'd thought about when you were younger, or was it just like, okay, I want to do something, but I want to kind of do something a little bit different from everyone doing these sciences here?
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting one as well. We always used to, so mum and dad, when we were kids, used to always sort of take us out into the countryside as family holidays and those kind of things. And we used to go and stay on like farm stay holidays as kids. And I suppose I liked that. And I thought, I mean, why not? I suppose with my attitude, it was a small course, not that many people on it. And it just seemed like the right idea. I didn't want to be in that course of thousands and thousands of people, just not really me. And I wanted something a bit more niche. So yeah, ended up there just doing that.
Very cool, very cool. And like I say, there's probably not a lot of people that can claim that accolade. now?
No, I think there was only about 50 people who did my course, maybe in the year I did it. So pretty small, but
Pretty small.
pretty small. Not many females in it either, but it was great. I loved it. Really good course.
Excellent.
I loved it.
Excellent. So then you weaved your way into events. Was that sort of off the back of something that you did with your previous role in sort of
No,
the
so I
agriculture
actually
side?
I sort of did that when I moved over to the UK, really. So I moved over to the UK about 16 years ago now, and kind of didn't really know what I was going to do when I got here, to be honest. So I sort of came with no plan other than I'd stay for 6 months, see if I liked it, and carry on. So, and I was lucky enough, a friend of mine back at home knew someone who had a small event agency, and he needed someone just to run some really small events for him. So very simple, small events, probably 20 or 30 people meeting up for sort of drinks and a bit of a talk or something like that. And yeah, it went from there. So I started really small and then just carried on.
Fantastic. And as you say, sort of friend from home moving to the UK, there's obviously, we can probably still pick up on the accent there, but where was home before you moved to the UK?
So home is Melbourne. So all my family is still back in Melbourne. So yeah, home is Melbourne. But as I said, been here 16 years, so quite a long time for someone who thought I'd be here maybe 6 or 8 months, maybe a couple of years at a push. But still here 16 years later.
Couldn't get enough, clearly.
Couldn't
Yeah.
get enough. So my
I
dad's
think,
English, so kind of a loose connection there at some point. But he's been out in Australia for years.
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that's saying something, because I loved Melbourne. I visited a few years ago, and I've got to say, I've sort of culturally really up my alley. I've went to a few places across Australia, and yeah, Melbourne was the one that probably ticked most of the boxes for me. So
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it is a pretty nice place. The weather's pretty good most of the time. It's got a great. What I like about it's got great cafe culture and
yeah,
just a nice, relaxed place to be, I think.
absolutely. Excellent. So one of the things that I ask again, I've asked of everyone, is kind of what's been in your time within events, and it's probably coming from a slightly different angle for you, which we'll kind of dig into in a bit, I guess. But what's been your strangest or most amazing experience of working in events?
Yeah, so there's probably a few. I've been doing it a while, so there's probably a few. I think one of the most amazing things I did was I was lucky enough to work on the Olympics, so the London 2012 Olympics. So I did a sort of 6 month, 8 month stint on that, and it was just amazing. I mean, it's an experience that I sort of saw as something I couldn't say no to, and went off and did that, and was based down at Excel, where we're dealing with 40,000 people every day at least, probably twice over, and it was a phenomenal experience. Like just something that I will never forget, and it was amazing. So very different to probably the corporate side, which is where I spent the last 10 years, but that was just prior to that, so that was pretty amazing. And then there's always something crazy that goes on, or something a bit unusual. And I know when you spoke to Elle a couple of weeks ago, she touched on having an experience with a kind of a dog that was there, and they had to sort of look after it. So I've actually had two of those myself. So the first one was we had Alexandra Burke at an event years ago,
Oh, yeah.
and one of the funniest things ever I'll kind of remember is my colleague sort of forming part of her entourage, but basically there to look after the dog. So she's just following along behind with her dog. And then we had Jeremy Paxman as well. Jeremy Paxman thought it was kind of right and appropriate to bring his 7 or 8 week old puppy to the Savoy. So that obviously threw a load of spanners in the works there, because let me say they weren't best pleased that had a puppy with us, but we got there, we got through.
Yeah, I mean, like a sort of house trained, older dog that can settle and chill and stuff, maybe. But wow,
Yeah.
that's a young age to be taking a
Yeah,
puppy
I think
anywhere.
from memory, I think we had to end up asking one of their staff, like get an extra staff member of theirs to like sit in this room with this puppy while he was kind of doing what he needed to do on stage for us. So, yeah.
And was he there for doing the comparing or something like that?
Yeah, he was there.
Got you.
He did a like a speech and a Q&A piece for us. So again, it was a while ago, but yeah, we had him on. He was good, really good.
Oh man, looking after dogs. It's that whole don't work with animals and children thing, though, isn't it? That's
Don't, especially when you don't think you're going to be working with animals and they just turn up.
Yeah. I mean, at least I guess at least it isn't just bringing your kids to work kind of thing. I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish to deal with, I suppose. But so the Olympics thing sounds incredible, and what a combination of meeting, your childhood wants to become an athlete and everything. And
yeah,
did
and
you
I
get
think
to
that's
meet
what
many
was.
people that did you get to meet athletes and stuff, or was it
So
mostly
I met,
managing the?
yeah, I met a few. So I sort of met a few, but more in passing. I looked after. So Excel obviously was one of the biggest venues that we had, that the Olympics had, and I looked after more so anything outside of what the kind of arenas were, I suppose. So I was involved in more of the kind of areas outside there. But what it did mean is I got to see a lot, because not that we got a lot of time off, because it was sort of 18-hour days, 14 days in a row. So it was pretty full on. But when we did have a day off, it was great because we could get out to the park and, went over to the Olympic Park and saw some of the racing there, and it was fantastic. Like, just to be involved and just the buzz. I think London had such a buzz then, and I think to have the buzz in the venues was just a once in a lifetime experience.
Absolutely. It's interesting that, I mean, I think every one of these that we've done, and this question of what's the kind of most amazing thing you've been involved in, there's some truly incredible things that people have been involved in, but it's remembering that actually you are working. And it's not just a 9 to 5 working. It's kind of, you put so much into it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I think I've worked in a lot of different places, and that you see some incredible things, you get to experience some incredible places, but at the end of the day, it's hard work. And I think that's, if you didn't enjoy that, you wouldn't go into events, because it's, it can be really hard work, but really rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And one of the other things that I asked, but I think we've probably covered this off, is about the funny events related moments. But I'm guessing this is what the dogs are all about there. Is there any others that spring to mind?
That's probably, I mean, I don't know how you go past that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's something. I can't imagine having to look after a puppy as part of that sort of thing, especially at a place like Savoy. I mean, wow.
Yeah, they were not happy. They were not happy, but we got around it. That's when you get to know the security guards, and you're pretty nice to them, because they weren't very happy.
And I guess it's that whole, again, we've covered it in terms of the job of events management, is dealing with the unexpected and having to think on your feet and all that sort of things.
Yeah, and I think in that case they realised that we didn't know about it either. So, but a lot of what you do is think quickly on your feet, and you have to. I mean, there's always something. There's probably always something going on. The key to it is to make sure none of the delegates know there is. So, and I think that's become even more obvious when you're working in the world of digital events too. So digital events they're so precise, and they start at 10 o'clock, and you have to go at 10 o'clock, or everyone starts to sort of think what's going on. Whereas if you're at a live event and you're a couple of minutes late because you need to tweak in the room, someone has an extra cup of coffee and don't mind so much. So
yeah, I guess it's sort of a whole new set of challenges with that, then, I guess, in terms of the digital side.
Yeah, a whole new set of challenges. And I think, I don't want to go back to harp on COVID, but COVID taught the events world that pretty quickly, and that we had to find a solution, an alternative, and digital was the way forward. But it's so different. It's a whole different set of challenges. It's a whole different set of concerns. It's a whole different set of control, really. So, a live event, you've got a fair amount of control. You can talk to the right people. If your technology starts to be challenging, unless you're the technology expert, which 99% of the event manager world isn't, then it becomes a real challenge. And it adds a whole different level of stress too.
Yeah, and it's that keeping the calm demeanor, in all of that as well, and making sure that, like you say, it's we're dealing with this. The client doesn't need to worry about it. It's all going to be fine. Everything's good. It's all that kind of, no, don't worry about it. And then stressing around the corner and making sure that everything is actually sorted.
I think it's that duck analogy, isn't it? Like floating on the top of the water fine, but underneath, those legs are going pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. One other question I do have is about any times where something might not have quite gone to plan, and what happened and how that was overcome, and what do you do in those scenarios?
Yeah, so I mean, again, there's always probably some things not going to plan, and it could be in the planning stage, or it could be in the execution stage. So one thing I did have in the planning stage, which kind of didn't go to plan, is we had everything planned, and 3 days before we realised England had qualified for the semi-finals of the Euros on the same evening as our gala dinner for our sales conference, which obviously was never going to go well because anyone in that room was wanting to be watching the football. So we worked really closely with the venue. We switched it up. We put an 8 metre by 5 metre screen. We're lucky it was in the summer outside. We switched the black tie dinner to a summer barbecue, set up some seats, and everyone watched it. And it worked really well. But that was definitely something that didn't go to plan. We didn't go the way we wanted it to. But you just have to work with it. You have to think on your feet. And you have to work with it. And I think there will always be something. I've had it before where people don't turn up when they're supposed to, or the build takes longer than you think it will, especially when you're getting into those bigger sort of 800 people events. The production build required for that is significant and doesn't always go to plan. There could be things that are missed off the packing list, or there could be things that just don't work the way they hope they will. And again, you just have to troubleshoot as you go along. That's why you work with the professionals in that world of production, and they sort it out. But that's where you have to be flexible, and these things happened. We had a switcher, so we use a switcher all the time, and switchers, according to the production team, never go down, and that's what it is. Well, we had 2 in 6 months, and so what do you do? Well, you throw an extra coffee break in and you work with it and you swap it over. But it's it's those kind of things where you really have to think on your feet and think on the fly and carry on, I suppose.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolute nightmare. Just having to suddenly switch everything out from black tie to kind of
it's definitely
shirts.
not what it's definitely not what you want. I mean, my typical thing is we would always run with a backup. So you would have a backup laptops, you would have backup projectors, you back up a load of things, you have extra microphones, but switches are just not something that they'd ever think you need a backup of. And when we then said, 6 months later, we need a backup switcher, I mean, the production team looked at us like we're crazy. What do you mean you need a production? What do you need? You need a backup switcher? Well, we need a backup switcher because we've had 2 go on us in 6 months. Like, okay. So, of course, ever since then, have I had another switcher go? No. So,
No,
I think we were just unlucky. But, it's those kind of things that you have to deal with.
Wow. Yeah, it's we've said it before. It's that analogy of the the swan, absolutely pedaling like mad under the water, but smooth, elegant, nothing to see here. It's all good. Don't worry about it. It's incredible the stuff that you have to contend with. And I'm happy to be sat in the office while you do. Well, that's fantastic. I feel like we've got a good getting to know you section there. It's good to find out so much more about you, and we'll carry on in a way with this because I think your previous experience brings potentially a whole new sort of angle for Gray Dawes Events. So I just wanted to sort of talk more around that, I suppose, in terms of where you've been previously and what that might bring to Gray Dawes Events.
Yeah, so I've spent prior to Gray Dawes, the last 10 years working for Vitality, so health and life insurance company Vitality. So client side really, so in the corporate events team there, and so done a real array of events with them. So everything from kind of small conferences of 40 people through to conferences sort of 350 people through to launch events of 800 advisors in a room at one point, as well as the digital side. Sort of we switched over and did that to kind of replace those kind of launch road shows, if you like, because we had to. We also did VIP experiences, so what we like to call money can't buy. I mean, experiences, so taking top performers to do something that they just couldn't walk in and do themselves. So we used Abbey Road for that one, where we actually hired a studio at Abbey Road and recorded a song, which was pretty amazing. So you could choose a song, you record the song, they bring a voice coach in, and you go ahead and record a song, and at the end of the day they put it all together and play it back to you. So pretty special experience for the attendees, really.
That's incredible. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And what was the feedback like off of that? You know, because they must have just thought,
Yeah, I mean, they loved it. So we actually did it twice. So we did it for our sort of, we used it for two different groups of audience people, because the first group was so kind of blown away by it. But it's just something that you can't do. You can't just walk into Abbey Road Studios. So, you know, most of the population will never get the opportunity to even go in there, and to be able to go in and record a song was amazing. And I think that's the kind of thing I think I'd like to bring, or we'd like to bring to Gray Dawes, really, I suppose, is to be able to offer those experiences to our clients, to say, come and see us, this is what we can do for you. And it's something that they just can't do themselves.
yeah, incredible. And with that sort of vast array of different event types that you were kind of responsible for, and you know that was running at Vitality, were there any key sort of challenges that were apparent throughout all of those, or does every kind of different event type, you know, a small event for 20 people versus this one for 800, you know, are the challenges that you face there vastly different, or is it just a case of the same but bigger?
I think it really varies. I mean, I think the challenge for me on events is every event is different. So one event might go completely smoothly, and it could be for 100 people. You could have what you think is a simple event for 20 people that actually throws a whole lot of challenges at you. So the challenge could be anything. So your small event, you could end up with, it's really VIP, it's really focused, you've got a really important group of people there, and the service from the venue might not be what you would expect from a venue of that level. And I think post-COVID, I think the events world has a potential challenge around that, in terms of getting the right staff back and trained, and really that service level can sometimes be a challenge. But you overcome it. You know, that's why you have strong event managers there to help with that, and you overcome it, and you work with the venue and you make sure it goes right. Once you get to those bigger events, I mean, that is a whole different scale, because anything that does go wrong is kind of multiplied by quite a lot. Also, what you're doing generally on things like that is they're a lot more complicated. So the event will be more complicated. It'll have a lot more moving parts, which I guess means there's more chance that there'll be something that will be just not quite right. So
Yeah, and I guess coming from that client side, it's almost like you were your own in-house agency by the sounds of it, though. The amount of stuff that you were
yeah,
actually
so we really
there.
were. Yeah, we really were. So we were probably doing, and we were only a small team, but we were probably doing 20 or 30 events a year, if not more. And yeah, we really work like an internal agency. And I suppose that's what I feel I can bring to Gray Dawes as well, is I have a really good understanding of the client side. So as a client, I kind of know what my expectation would have been, and I know what I would have expected from my agencies, and how I wanted my agencies to act, and what I needed them to do for me. So we almost saw them as kind of an extension of our team in a lot of ways. So, you know, really brought them in and worked really hard with our agencies to get them to understand us. And I think that's fundamental. I think it's really, really important when you're working with an agency, is that, or as an agency and the client is working with an agency, is that the agency has a really good understanding of what does the client need, what does the client want, what is their ultimate, I suppose, goal and objective of that event.
That's great. I mean, I think that there's such an alignment there with what the sort of ethos of every component of the Gray Dawes group, actually. That whole extension of your organization piece is something which I know that across the group is what is strived for. You know, whether it's Gray Dawes Events or Gray Dawes Travel or any other part of the group, that kind of getting under the skin and making sure that, yeah, you understand not just here's a list of what we want, but why do you want it? What are the objectives there? And, you know, because that's where your experience as, you know, the expert in events can afford so much more. Because if you understand what the objective is, it's not just a shopping list. Oh, here you go. Yeah, here's this. If you understand what the objective is, it's more, well, have you thought of, you know, and it's bringing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can do the same event twice, but it would be very different. So you could do, like I suppose the Abbey Road is an example. We did the same event, we did it twice, but the format was almost different. Like the fundamental format was the same, because you were doing and recording the song, but everything that went around it was different on each of those. And I think For me, I think as well, I think we used to have people come to us even internally. So we sort of acted as the internal agency saying, oh, Erin, I need a dinner for 20 people. Well, why do you need a dinner for 20 people? Well, because we need to do this, 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 and this. And I think where we actually would probably land is you didn't need a dinner for 20 people. You actually needed a presentation for 50 people with a VIP dinner for 10 people on the side. So, and I think that's really important is that we always come back to the why. Why are you doing this and what do you need from this? And I think that is fundamental again. I mean, I've used the word fundamental a lot, but it really does. It drives why you're doing the event and what is the value of you doing that, because ultimately events have to give value back.
Yeah, I love that. It's really it's great to hear that sort of played back. I think from a brand perspective of that's what you want, is someone to really get under the skin and really appreciate that why. It's certainly from a marketing perspective, it's always about the why are we doing this, what's it for. So
I think you have to start there. I think it's really important to start there.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's fantastic. So we also do some quick fire questions usually.
Yeah.
So this is quick fire on both fronts because I have to think on my feet of some questions to ask. I do keep meaning to write some down, and just not getting around to it. So we'll go for some quick fire questions if that's okay.
We could reverse it on you, John. We could do quick fire on you.
Oh, we could do quick fire on me.
That means I have to think on my feet twice.
That means you have to think on your feet as well.
That might be a silly idea.
Hey, look, it's up to you. I'm game if you are, but I'm happy to do either way.
Why don't you quick fire them and I'll fire them back?
Okay.
Quick fire questions.
Coffee or tea, or neither?
Coffee every time.
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee for me every time as well. Although I'm a bit of a coffee snob, I can't do instant coffee. I'm sorry, I'm that guy.
I'm a bit like that too. It has to be a good cup of coffee. It has to be worth drinking.
That's right. Yeah. Every time's got to be worth it. Okay. In the office, working from home, or on site?
Yeah, that's a hard one. On site, I think. Ultimately, I think for any events person on site, they love. I love as well. But I do also really enjoy the planning process. So office, home, hybrid, wherever you are. But I do enjoy the planning process as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like you say, I think most people in events are there for being at the event, aren't they? That's what it's all about ultimately.
Yeah. And I think that's why when everything went digital, people were like, I didn't join events to be sat behind a computer and be digital. So I think that says a lot as well. So
yeah.
What about football or rugby for you?
See, I'm not really a sports guy. I'd probably more happily sit and watch a rugby match, because I just think the crowd that are watching a rugby match tend to be a bit more chill. And
I agree.
I've never been a sporty guy. I'm the kind of nerdy bloke rather than the sporty guy. How about you, football or rugby?
Probably rugby, I think. So, my passion's Aussie rules, but obviously that's not over here. But yeah, probably rugby. Similar reasons to you.
I was gonna say, is there an Aussie rules kind of?
Yeah, so it's
surely there's a little rumbling of that around here now.
There's a little bit of rumbling. I do like to try and watch it on like here if I can. I get it streamed, but there's a competition of it here now in like based pretty much in London, I think.
Right. Going out or staying in?
Staying in, I think.
Staying in.
Staying in. So I think if you'd asked me that previously, it'd probably been going out. I think now it's staying in. I quite like a night on the sofa.
Yeah, I mean, there is something about it now, isn't there? You get to a point, it's a bit like, I just need to just have a little chill on the sofa, and have plans to watch a film at home or something. I have plans lots of the times to watch films and then end up just sitting there and clicking through all the streaming stuff, and then I think, I just can't be bothered now. I've clicked through for about an hour. I haven't found anything. It's probably time for bed.
Yeah. Yep. Me too. But I do like a night on the sofa. Night on the sofa, night in the garden if the weather's good.
Nice. Can I think of any more off the top of my head? Musical movies?
Probably music. Music on in the background. Sitting around having a chat, probably more than a movie. Don't get me wrong, I like a movie, but probably music.
Yeah, you can't kind of interact with people when you watch a movie, really, can you?
No, But no, and I think I like music.
Cool. And I think of one last one. Okay. Australia or the UK?
Oh, that's a big question.
That's a big one.
But Australia will always be home for me. Australia will always be home. And if anyone ever asked me and said, where's home? It will always be Australia. But my life's in the UK now. So if only they were closer, if only I could jump on a flight and they were an hour apart, that would be the ideal for me, because all my family are back in Australia and obviously love to be able to see them more. But I love my life in the UK. So it's, yeah. If they could just be an hour's flight away and not 24 hours, that'd be handy.
You just have to, all the client events that could be international now can all, you should just recommend Australia every time.
Every time, yeah. Always Australia. And look, I definitely need to be on site.
Yeah. Yeah, Melbourne again, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to make the most of that if you can.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very, very much for your time again. That was brilliant.
Thanks for having me.
Hope you enjoyed it, or didn't.
I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And we will have another episode of podcast soon, no doubt. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears peeled. And we'll be releasing another episode at some point in the not too distant future. Thanks again, Erin, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, John.
Cheers.
See you later. Bye.